The massive doors of the Valori High Command opened slowly, and Commander Lily Morgan stepped inside. She had to stop herself from gasping at what she saw. The hall was enormous, bigger than any building she had ever seen on Earth. The ceiling rose so high the clouds seemed to float inside. Everything was made of dark purple stone that glowed softly from within. Lily was 32 years old, with short brown hair and calm gray eyes. She had spent 10 years as a combat pilot before becoming a diplomat. The military had chosen her for this mission because she never panicked, never lost her temper, and never showed fear even when she felt it deep inside. The Valori guards standing along the walls were terrifying. Each one stood 8 feet tall, covered in scales that changed color like oil on water. They had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle. Their faces were almost human, but their 4 eyes made them look strange and alien. Lily kept her breathing steady as she walked past them. At the end of the hall sat General Kelleth, Persan on a throne made of black crystal. She was the most famous warrior in the entire Valori Empire. Story said she had won over 200 battles without a single defeat. Her scales were a deep violet color that barely moved or changed, a sign that she had perfect control over her emotions. Lily stopped at the proper distance and bowed her head slightly. Not too deep, because humans were allies now, not servants, but deep enough to show respect. "You are the human they sent," Kelleth said. Her voice was deep and cold, like stones grinding together. "You are smaller than I expected." "I am Commander Lily Morgan," Lily replied, keeping her voice steady. "I am here to serve as diplomatic liaison between Earth and the Valori Empire." Kelleth leaned forward on her throne. Her 4 eyes studied Lily like a scientist studying an insect. "Humans break easily. Your bones are fragile. Your skin tears with little effort. Why would your people send someone so weak to work with warriors?" Lily had been warned about this. The Valori respected only strength. They saw kindness as weakness and politeness as fear. If she backed down now, she would never earn their respect. "Humans bend," Lily said, meeting those 4 alien eyes without looking away. "We rarely break." Something changed in Kelleth's expression. The scales around her neck shifted to a slightly deeper shade of purple. It happened so fast that Lily almost missed it. Later, she would learn that this meant curiosity, a rare emotion for the famous general to show. "We shall see," Kelleth said, that the alliance between Earth and the Valori Empire was only 6 months old. It had been born from desperation, not friendship. The Krexan Horde, a race of brutal conquerors, was sweeping across the galaxy. They had already destroyed dozens of civilizations. Neither humans nor Valori could defeat them alone, so they had agreed to work together. But the alliance was fragile. Many Valori believed that humans were too weak to be useful. Many humans believed that the Valori were too arrogant to be trusted. Lily's job was to make the 2 sides work together, to turn suspicion into cooperation. It was not easy every day. Lily attended meetings with Valori commanders who looked at her like she was a child playing at war. Every day, she had to prove herself again and again. She learned their language, their customs, their history. She trained her body until she could keep up with Valori march that would have killed most humans. She studied their battle tactics until she could discuss strategy with their generals. Slowly, things began to change. The Valori noticed that the small human never complained, never gave up, never asked for special treatment. She worked harder than anyone expected. She solved problems that had frustrated their own. Diplomats for months. And General Kelleth noticed most of all. The general began requesting Lily's presence at meetings where a human liaison was not required. She asked for Lily's opinion on matters that had nothing to do with the alliance. She invited Lily to observe training sessions, to share meals, to walk through the gardens of the High Command. Lily told herself it was just professional interest. The general was curious about humans, nothing more. But sometimes, when their eyes met across a crowded room, Lily felt something she could not explain. A connection. A recognition. As if some part of her had known Caliph long before they ever met. The Valori did not believe in romance the way humans did. They did not write love poems or sing love songs. They believed in something they called soul recognition, a bond that happened rarely and could not be controlled. When a Valori found their true match, their scales would change to colors they had never shown before. It was considered sacred, unbreakable, more important than rank or duty or even life itself. One evening, Lily was working late in her quarters when her door chimed. She opened it to find Caliph standing outside, alone, without guards or attendants. The general's scales were swirling with colors Lily had never seen before, deep golds and soft silvers mixing with her usual violet. "General," Lily said, surprised. "Is something wrong?" Caliph stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. She stood very close to Lily, close enough that Lily could feel the warmth radiating from her scaled skin. "I have fought 112 battles," Caliph said quietly. "I have faced enemies that would make your nightmares seem peaceful. I have never felt fear." She paused, and her scale shifted to a deep crimson. "Until now. I do not understand," Lily whispered. "I am afraid," Caliph admitted, "because I cannot control what I feel for you. My people call it soul recognition. I did not believe it was real until I met you. But now I know the truth. You are my match, Lily Morgan. My soul has recognized yours." Lily's heart was beating so hard she thought it might burst. This was impossible. Insane. A human and a Valori general? The alliance was already struggling. This could destroy everything. But when she looked into Caliph's 4 eyes, she saw something she recognized. Loneliness, hope, a desperate wish to be understood. "I feel it too," Lily admitted. "I have been trying to ignore it, but I feel it too." Caliph's scales blazed with color, the most beautiful thing Lily had ever seen. The general reached out with one of her 4 hands and gently touched Lily's face. Her scaled fingers were surprisingly warm. "Then I will claim you as my mate," Caliph said. "Before the council, before the empire, before the galaxy itself. Let them all know that Caliph Versan has found her match." Lily knew she should refuse. She knew the problems this would cause. But looking at this powerful warrior who had let down her walls for the first time in her life, Lily could not say no. "Yes," she said simply. The next morning, when Caliph announced her choice to the council, the entire Valori Empire erupted in chaos. The council chamber exploded with angry voices. Valori commanders shouted over each other, their scales flashing red and orange with rage. Some slammed their 4 fists against the stone tables. Others stood and pointed accusingly at General Caliph, who sat calmly on her throne, as if the chaos around her was nothing more than a gentle breeze. "This is an insult to our ancestors," roared Councillor Vethran, an older Valori whose scales had faded to dull gray with age. He was the most traditional member of the council, and he hated the alliance with humanity more than anyone. A human cannot be the mate of a Valori general. It has never happened. It should never happen. "Soul recognition does not ask for permission," Caliph replied coldly. "It simply is." "Then we demand the trials of Kethvorin," Vethran said, and the chamber fell silent. The trials of Kethvorin were ancient. They dated back thousands of years, to a time when Valori society was young and violent. Any mate of a high-ranking official had to prove their worth through 3 tests: the trial of body, the trial of mind, and the trial of spirit. The trials were brutal. Even trained Valori warriors sometimes died attempting them. Caliph's scales shifted to pale white, the color of cold fury. You would subject my chosen mate to trials designed for Valori warriors. She is human. The tests would need to be adjusted. The law says nothing about adjustments, Rethran replied with a cruel smile. The trials are the trials. If the human survives, she proves her worth. If she fails, he spread his forearms wide. Then we will know that soul recognition can make fools of even the greatest among us. On board the human ship Starlight Horizon, Admiral Jack Crawford paced back and forth in the briefing room. He was a large man with gray hair and a face marked by decades of military service. Right now, that face was dark with worry. This is insane, he said for the 5th time. They want you to fight in gladiator games. You, a human diplomat, against warriors who could tear you apart with their bare hands. It is their tradition, Lily said. She sat at the table, calm as always, though her heart was racing beneath her uniform. And I have agreed to it. Dr. Samantha Green, the ship's medical officer, leaned forward. She was a small woman with kind eyes and gentle hands that had saved hundreds of lives. Lily, I have studied Valori physiology. Their bones are 3 times denser than ours. Their muscles produce 4 times the force. In a direct physical confrontation, you have 0 chance of survival. The trials are not only physical, Lily explained. There are 3 parts. The trial of body tests strength and survival. The trial of mind tests intelligence and strategy. The trial of spirit tests, well, they would not tell me exactly what it tests. Only that it has broken warriors who passed the first 2 trials easily. Lieutenant Kevin Park, the ship's communications officer, cleared his throat. He was young, barely 25. With nervous eyes and quick fingers that flew over computer screens faster than anyone else in the fleet. Commander, I intercepted some Valori communications last night. Counselor Vethran has been talking privately with other council members who oppose the Human Alliance. They are planning something. What kind of something? Admiral Crawford demanded. I could not decode all of it, but they mentioned making the trials impossible. They want Commander Morgan to fail. If she fails, they can use it as proof that humans are inferior. They could use it to break the alliance entirely. The room went quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. Lily was not just fighting for her right to be with Kelleth. She was fighting for the alliance itself, for the cooperation that was the only hope humanity had against the Crexan horde. Then I will not fail, Lily said simply. That night, Lily stood alone on the observation deck of the Starlight Horizon. The Valori homeworld hung in the darkness outside the windows, a massive planet of purple continents and silver oceans. Somewhere down there, Kelleth was waiting. The rules of the trial said that Kelleth could not contact Lily until the tests were over. She could not offer advice, encouragement, or help of any kind. All she could do was watch. I know you are listening, Lily said quietly, knowing that Kelleth had access to the ship's external communications. Your people think I am weak because I am small. They think I will break because I am soft. But they do not understand humans. She pressed her hand against the cold glass of the window. My grandmother survived 3 years in a refugee camp during the war. She had no food, no medicine, no hope. But she survived. My father was a firefighter who ran into burning buildings to save strangers. He died doing it, but he saved 11 people first. My mother raised 3 children alone while working 2 jobs, and she never once complained. Lily felt tears prickling at her eyes, but she did not let them fall. That is what humans are. We are not strong like your people. We cannot crush steel with our hands or survive wounds that would kill 10 of us. But we endure. We adapt. We find ways to survive when survival seems impossible. That is our strength, Kelleth. That is what I will show your people. In her chambers on Valor Prime, General Calith Versan stood before a screen that showed Lily's face. Her scales were shifting through colors that her guards had never seen before. Deep crimsons and burning golds that spoke of emotions she had never allowed herself to feel. She could not respond. The law forbade it. But she whispered the words anyway, knowing they would never reach human ears. I believe you, my love. Show them what you are. The next morning, Lily was transported to Vela Prime for the beginning of the trials. The shuttle landed in a massive courtyard outside the Arena of Ancestors, a coliseum that had stood for 10,000 years. Thousands of Valori had gathered to watch. Most of them expected to see a human die. Counselor Vethram met her at the entrance. His scales were smug orange, the color of anticipated victory. You may still withdraw, he said, though his tone made it clear he did not expect her to. No one would blame a human for recognizing her limitations. Lily looked up at the counselor. This ancient warrior, who stood almost 3 feet taller than her, who had commanded armies when her grandparents were still children. I did not come here to withdraw, she said. I came here to win. Vethran laughed, a harsh sound like rocks falling. Brave words. Let us see if you can support them with actions. The gates of the arena opened, and Lily walked inside. The roar of the crowd washed over her like a wave. Above her, on a high throne carved from black crystal, General Keleth sat watching. Their eyes met across the vast distance. Lily straightened her spine and walked toward her first trial. 3 days after the trials ended, the bonding ceremony took place under the twin moons of Vela Prime. The sky was dark purple, filled with stars that had watched the Valori civilization for millions of years. Tonight, they watched something new, something that had never happened before in all that time. A human was joining with a Valori general. The ceremony was held in the Garden of Eternal Memory, a sacred place where the most important events in Valori history had been celebrated for 10,000 years. Ancient trees with silver leaves surrounded a clearing of soft purple grass. Floating lights drifted through the air like gentle fireflies. Lily stood in the center of the clearing, wearing ceremonial robes that had been modified for her smaller human frame. The fabric was deep violet, the color of Calith's scales, and it shimmered with embedded crystals that caught the moonlight. Around her neck hung a simple chain with a human wedding ring, a tradition she had insisted on including. Representatives from both species filled the garden. Admiral Crawford stood with the human delegation, his uniform decorated with every medal he had ever earned. Dr. Green and Lieutenant Park stood beside him, watching their commander with pride and amazement. They had known Lily was brave. They had not known she was capable of changing history. The Valori attendees included generals, counselors, and warriors from across the Empire. Many had come expecting to see something shameful, a proud general lowering herself by bonding with an inferior species. But the story of the trials had spread across Vela Prime like fire. Everyone knew what the human had done. Everyone knew what she had proven. Even those who still doubted could not deny that she had earned this moment. General Keleth walked into the clearing from the opposite side. Her ceremonial armor gleamed under the moonlight, ancient plates that had been worn by Valori leaders for generations. But on one of her 4 hands, something new glittered, a human wedding ring that matched Lily's, modified to fit her larger finger. The blending of traditions had caused arguments among the ceremony planners. Some Valori had complained that including human customs was disrespectful to their ancestors. Some humans had worried that participating in alien rituals was inappropriate. Calith and Lily had ignored them all. We are building something new, Calith had said during the planning. It should look like both of us, not just one. Now, as she walked toward Lily, her scales were glowing with colors that seemed to come from another world entirely. The watching crowd fell silent, awed by the display of emotion from a general famous for her control. The ceremony was conducted by the Keeper of Bonds, an ancient Valori priest who had performed thousands of unions over his long life. He had never performed one like this. Two souls have recognized each other across the void of species and culture, the Keeper intoned, his voice carrying through the garden. Two hearts have found each other against all expectation. This is the mystery of connection, the power that binds all thinking beings together. He turned to Keleth. Do you claim this human as your eternal match, to stand beside you in triumph and defeat, in joy and sorrow, until the stars themselves grow cold? I claim her, Keleth said. I claim her completely. The Keeper turned to Lily. Do you accept this Valori as your eternal partner, to walk with her through whatever paths the universe provides until the end of your days? I accept her, Lily said. I accept her with all that I am. The Keeper raised his forearms to the sky. Then by the light of the moons and the witness of the ancestors, I declare these two souls bonded. Let no force in the universe tear apart what they have chosen to join. Keleth reached down and lifted Lily gently off the ground, bringing her face to face. In human weddings, this would be the moment for a kiss. The Valori had a different tradition. They pressed their foreheads together, sharing breath, feeling each other's heartbeat. When they separated, both were smiling. The celebration that followed lasted until dawn. Human and Valori delegates talked and laughed together, discovering common ground that neither species had expected. Dr. Green found herself in a deep conversation with a Valori medical officer about comparative physiology. Lieutenant Park taught a group of young Valori warriors a human card game, which they found fascinating in its combination of luck and strategy. Admiral Crawford stood with General Rethax, the commander Lily had defeated in the tactical simulation. She humiliated me, Rethax admitted, his scale showing rueful purple. I thought I was the finest tactical mind in the Empire. She destroyed my fleet in less than an hour. She does that, Crawford said with a smile. I stopped playing war games with her years ago. She always wins. How? She's not stronger or faster. Her species has no special mental abilities. How does she defeat those who should be superior? Crawford thought about the question for a long moment. Humans evolved on a dangerous planet, he finally said. We were not the biggest or the strongest or the fastest. Everything could kill us. The weather, the animals, even our own food, if we prepared it wrong. We survived by being adaptable, by thinking differently, by refusing to accept that any situation was hopeless. Rethax was quiet for a moment. We have much to learn from your species, he finally said. I hope this alliance gives us the chance. So do I, Crawford replied. So do I. Later, as the celebration wound down, Counselor Vethran approached Lily and Keleth. His scales were muted to humble grays, and his posture was lower than usual, a sign of respect among his people. I owe you an apology, Commander Morgan, he said, the title sounding strange, coming from one who had called her merely human for so long. I designed your trials expecting failure. I wanted you to fail. I wanted to use your defeat to destroy the alliance with your people. He lowered his head. I was wrong. Not just about you, but about what strength truly means. Lily could have been angry. She could have been cold. Instead, she simply nodded. Then learn from it, she said. That is what humans do. We fail. We learn. We try again. The only true failure is refusing to grow. Vethran looked at her with something like wonder. Your people are remarkable, he said quietly. I did not see it before. I see it now. In the months that followed, the alliance between humanity and the Valori Empire grew stronger than anyone had predicted. Military strategies were shared and combined. Technologies were traded and improved. Cultural exchanges brought understanding where suspicion had once lived. When the Krexan Horde finally launched their invasion, they faced a united front. Valori warriors brought their legendary strength and ferocity. Human commanders brought their adaptability and creative tactics. Together, they formed something greater than either could have been alone. The war lasted 18 months. The Horde was defeated. Their advance first stopped and then reversed. Worlds that had been conquered were liberated. The threat that had united two species in desperation was finally ended. General Caliph Versan became the first Valori to serve on a joint command council with human officers. Commander Lily Morgan became the first human to hold honorary rank in the Valori military. Together, they represented something new. Partnership that crossed the boundaries of species, culture, and tradition. One evening, long after the war had ended, Lily and Caliph stood together on the observation deck of their shared quarters, watching the stars. "Do you ever regret it?" Lily asked. "Choosing me? You could have had a Valori mate, someone stronger. Someone your people would have accepted without question." Caliph's scales shimmered with deep affection. "My people believe that soul recognition cannot be wrong. But even without that belief, even if I had chosen you through logic alone, I would make the same choice. You taught my entire civilization that strength comes in many forms. You showed them that small does not mean weak, that different does not mean inferior." She reached down and took Lily's hand, her scaled fingers gentle despite their strength. "And you taught me," Caliph continued softly, "that I did not have to face the universe alone. That even the strongest warrior needs someone to share the burden. That is a gift beyond measure." Lily leaned against her mate's massive frame, feeling the warmth of scales against her skin. Outside, the stars burned on, indifferent to the small moments of connection that gave them meaning. But somewhere out there, on 100 worlds, the story of the human who had faced the trials of Valor was already becoming legend. Parents told their children about the small alien who had fought without fighting, who had thought without thinking, who had found light in absolute darkness. And the lesson of that story would echo through generations. That true strength was not about size or power, but about the courage to face the impossible and the wisdom to find new ways to overcome it. Humans and Valori walked together now, building a future that neither could have imagined alone. And it had all started with one small human who refused to break. "I love you," Lily whispered. "And I love you," Caliph replied, her scales glowing with colors that spoke louder than words. Outside, the stars continued their eternal dance, witnesses to a bond that would help shape the fate of the galaxy itself. The arena of ancestors was older than human civilization. Its stone walls had watched 10,000 years of combat, triumph, and death. The sand beneath Lily's feet was dark purple, stained by generations of Valori blood. Above her, 50,000 spectators filled the seats, their scales flashing with excitement and curiosity. A massive Valori warrior stepped out from the opposite gate. His name was Therix, and he was famous across the Empire for his brutality. His scales were dark red, almost black, and his forearms were thicker than Lily's entire body. He had volunteered for this fight specifically. He wanted to be the one who crushed the human. "The trial of body," announced a voice that echoed through the arena. "The challenger must survive for 10 minutes against a chosen warrior. No weapons. No surrender. Begin." Therix charged immediately. His massive feet shook the ground with each step. His forearms reached out, ready to grab Lily and tear her apart. Lily did not try to fight. She did not try to block. She simply moved. 10 years as a combat pilot had trained her reflexes to superhuman levels. She had learned to process information faster than most people could think. In the cockpit of a fighter ship, hesitation meant death. She had learned to act on instinct, to trust her body to do what her mind could not consciously control. She ducked under Therix's first grab. She rolled between his legs as he turned. She jumped sideways as his fist smashed into the sand, where she had been standing a heartbeat before. The crowd started laughing. To them, she looked like a small animal running from a predator. It was amusing, pathetic, even. This was not fighting. This was just survival. But survival was exactly what the trial demanded. Minutes passed. Theryx grew angrier with each failed attack. His scales turned darker red, almost purple with rage. He was not used to enemies who would not stand and fight. He was not used to missing. "Stand still, human," he roared. "Face me with honor." Lily did not waste breath answering. She kept moving, kept dodging, kept surviving. Her lungs burned. Her legs ached. But she did not stop Dodd at the 7-minute mark. Theryx made a mistake. He was so frustrated that he overreached, throwing his entire body into a massive swing that was meant to crush Lily into the sand. But she was not there. She had already moved, sliding to his side like water flowing around a rock dot with nothing to hit. Theryx's momentum carried him forward. He stumbled, his massive weight working against him. Lily did not try to hurt him, knowing she lacked the strength. Instead, she used basic physics. She grabbed one of his arms and pulled in the direction. He was already falling. Theryx crashed into the arena wall with a sound like thunder. Stone cracked. Dust flew into the air. The crowd fell silent. 3 more minutes passed. Theryx, now limping from his collision with the wall, could not catch the human who moved like smoke, like shadow, like something that could not be touched. When the final horn sounded, Lily was still standing. She had won the trial of body. Counselor Vethran's scales had turned pale with shock, but he recovered quickly. "A trick," he announced to the crowd. The human avoided combat like a coward. The trial of mind will reveal her true weakness. The trial of mind took place in the war room, a chamber filled with holographic displays that could simulate any battle in history. Lily was given control of a human fleet, just 40 ships against the 120 ships commanded by General Rethax, one of the finest tactical minds in the Valori Empire. "This simulation is set to maximum difficulty," Vethran explained with a cruel smile. "No human has ever attempted it. Most Valori fail within 2 hours." Lily studied the display. Her ships were outnumbered 3-1. Rethax had superior firepower, superior speed, and superior positioning. By any reasonable calculation, she should lose. But humans have been playing war games for thousands of years. From ancient chess to modern battle simulators, humans had always been fascinated by the puzzle of combat. Lily had trained on tactical programs since she was 16 years old. She had won competitions that drew the best minds from across Earth's colonies. More importantly, she understood something the Valori did not. Strength was predictable. Superior forces usually won in predictable ways. But weakness forced creativity. When you could not win by being stronger, you had to win by being smarter. She began giving orders. Her fleet split into 12 seemingly random groups, scattering across the simulated battlefield. Rethax watched with confusion, then contempt. "She panics," he announced. "She breaks her forces like a frightened child." But Lily was not panicking. She was setting a trap. She sent small groups to attack Rethax's supply lines. She had other groups make feint attacks, pretending to be larger forces than they were. She used asteroids and nebulae as cover, hiding her true positions. She made her movements seem random, chaotic, impossible to predict. Rethax tried to respond to each threat, but there were too many. Every time he moved to crush one group, another would appear somewhere else. His superior numbers became a weakness as his fleet stretched thin trying to cover every possible attack. Then, exactly when Lily wanted, the trap closed. Her scattered forces suddenly converged, all 12 groups coming together at the exact moment when Rethax's command ship was exposed. The simulated missiles flew. The holographic explosions loomed. Read THX single quotes S command ship was destroyed in 43 minutes. The war room fell silent. The simulation had been designed to last at least 4 hours. Many Valori commanders had taken 6 or 7 hours to win, and they had started with equal forces, not the disadvantage Lily had faced. General Rethax stared at the display for a long moment. His scale slowly shifted from shock to something that might have been respect. "I have fought in 37 real battles," he said quietly. "I have never been defeated so completely. Where did you learn to think like this?" "I am human," Lily replied simply. "This is how we survive." Up on her observation throne, General Kelleth allowed herself a small smile. Her scales were glowing with pride, though she kept her expression neutral for the watching crowd. Counselor Vethran's scales had gone completely gray with disbelief. He had designed these trials to be unwinnable. He had chosen the strongest warrior and the smartest general. Yet this small, fragile human had defeated them both. But there was still one trial left. "The trial of spirit begins at dawn," Vethran announced, his voice cold with barely controlled anger. "We shall see if human tricks can help her there." That night, Lily sat alone in the small room they had given her. Tomorrow she would face the final test, the one that no one would explain. She did not know what to expect, did not know how to prepare, but she thought of Kelleth watching from her throne. She thought of her crew on the starlight horizon, counting on her to save the Alliance. She thought of all the humans across the galaxy who would suffer if she failed. "One more trial," she whispered to herself. "Just one more." She closed her eyes and tried to sleep, not knowing that the hardest test was still ahead. At dawn, they came for her. 4 Valori guards, silent and expressionless, led Lily through corridors she had never seen before. They walked deeper and deeper into the mountain beneath the high command, past ancient carvings and forgotten shrines, until they reached a door made of solid black stone. "The trial of spirit," one guard said. His voice echoed in the empty corridor. "You will enter. You will wait. When the trial is complete, the door will open." "What am I supposed to do inside?" Lily asked. The guard did not answer. He simply opened the door, revealing absolute darkness beyond. Lily stepped inside. The door closed behind her with a sound like a tomb sealing shut. The darkness was complete. Not the darkness of a room at night, where eyes eventually adjust and shapes become visible. This was true darkness, the kind that existed in caves miles beneath the earth, where light had never reached. Lily held her hand in front of her face and saw nothing. She stood still for a moment, listening. There was no sound. No dripping water, no distant machinery, no whisper of air movement. Just silence so deep it seemed to press against her ears. Hours passed. Or perhaps they did not. Time became meaningless in the dark. Lily sat down, conserving her energy, trying to understand what the trial required. No food came. No water. No voice spoke to explain what she was supposed to do. The Valori, she realized, believed that true spirit could only be measured in isolation. Their warriors trained from childhood to endure long periods alone, to control their minds so completely that fear and loneliness could not touch them. They saw this ability as the foundation of true strength, and they believed that humans, with their social nature and emotional needs, would crumble without others to support them. More hours passed. Lily's throat grew dry. Her stomach ached with hunger. But worse than the physical discomfort was the mental weight of the darkness. It pressed against her mind, making her thoughts spiral in uncomfortable directions. She started to doubt herself. What if she could not pass this trial? What if she was not strong enough? What if she had been fooling herself all along, pretending to be brave when she was really just lucky? The darkness seemed to whisper these doubts directly into her brain. But then Lily remembered her grandmother. Martha Morgan had been 18 years old when the war came to her village. She had spent 3 years in a refugee camp, surviving on scraps of food and rainwater collected in dirty containers. She had watched friends die of disease. She had buried her own mother with her bare hands. And every night, in that hell of suffering and despair, Martha had sung. She had sung the old songs, the ones her grandmother had taught her. Songs about hope and home and the strength of the human heart. Other refugees had gathered around her, drawn by the sound of music in a place where music seemed impossible. Her singing had become a light in the darkness, a reminder that they were still human, still alive, still capable of beauty. Lily had grown up on those songs. Now, sitting in the darkness of the Valori trial, she began to sing them. Her voice was rough at first, scratchy from thirst and disuse. But as she continued, it grew stronger. The old melodies filled the chamber, echoing off walls she could not see. Songs about sailors finding their way home. Songs about lovers reunited after years apart. Songs about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. She sang for hours. When she ran out of songs she knew, she made up new ones. When her voice gave out, she hummed. When she could not hum, she tapped rhythms against the stone floor with her fingers. The darkness could not touch her anymore. She had brought her own light. Outside the chamber, in a monitoring room filled with screens and sensors, Councillor Vethran watched with growing disbelief. He had seen hundreds of warriors take this trial. Some lasted longer than others. Some screamed. Some begged. Some simply sat in silence, enduring through pure willpower. None of them had ever sung. The other council members had gathered to watch. Even General Kelleth had been permitted to observe, though she was not allowed to interfere. Her scales were cycling through colors that none of them had ever seen, deep purples and shimmering golds that spoke of emotions beyond words. What is she doing? Vethran demanded. This is not how the trial works. She is supposed to be suffering. She is adapting, General Rethak said quietly. He had watched Lily destroy his fleet in the tactical simulation. He was beginning to understand something about humans that his people had missed. She cannot stop the darkness, so she creates her own light. She cannot find comfort outside herself, so she finds it within. That is not strength, Vethran insisted. That is just noise, is it? Callith spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft, but it carried the weight of her authority. Tell me, Counselor, how many of our warriors have you seen smile during the trial of spirit? How many have you seen find joy in the darkness? Vethran could not answer. He had never seen it. Not once. 30-6 hours after the trial began, the door finally opened. Light flooded in, blinding after so long in darkness. Lily squinted, her eyes watering, but she did not fall. She did not stumble. She walked out of that chamber on her own 2 feet. Her voice was nearly gone. Her body ached with hunger and thirst. But she was smiling. Councillor Vethran stood before her, his scales shifting through confused colors that showed emotions he could not hide. Behind him, dozens of Valori officials watched in silence. I am finished, Lily said, her voice barely a whisper. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Vethran's scales flashed red with anger. This proves nothing, he shouted. The trials are meaningless. This human has shown nothing except that her species is too stupid to understand true strength. She sang in the darkness like a child playing games. That is not spirit. That is foolishness. You are wrong. The voice came from behind the crowd. Everyone turned. General Callith Versan walked forward, her scales blazing with colors no one present had ever seen. Deep golds and burning crimsons swirled together, mixing with purples and silvers in patterns that seemed impossible. The crowd parted before her, like water before a ship. She has proven everything, Keleth continued, her voice ringing through the chamber. Strength is not only the ability to destroy. It is not only the ability to endure. True strength is the ability to find hope where none exists, to create joy from nothing, to carry light into the deepest darkness. She walked until she stood beside Lily, towering over the small human, but looking at her with something like wonder. My people have forgotten this. We have become so focused on power that we have forgotten what power is for. But this human has reminded us. She faced the darkness not with walls, but with light. Not with silence, but with song. Keleth reached down and took Lily's hand. The gesture was intimate, sacred, something that Valori did only with those closest to their hearts. The human has passed the trials, Keleth announced. I claim her as my mate, and any who challenge this decision will answer to me personally. The chamber fell silent. No one spoke. No one dared. Even Counselor Vethran, for all his hatred and all his schemes, could not find words to argue with the greatest general in Valori history. Lily looked up at Keleth, at this powerful warrior who had waited and watched and believed in her. She squeezed Keleth's hand and smiled. I told you, she whispered. Humans bend. We rarely break. Keleth's scales shimmered with deep affection. You did more than bend, my love. You taught my entire people something they had forgotten, and they will never forget again.